I don't know that selling the business is something that I would necessarily be fond of. Like, I want to do this for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Financial gains are probably secondary to building an impactful, like, purposeful business.
Welcome to Decision Points. I'm Scott Wood, and I'm here today with Adam Herrin. Adam is the founder and managing partner of Formation Interest. Adam, welcome.
Good morning.
How you
Thanks for
doing?
having me.
Yeah.
Good. Doing really good.
Good. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about Formation Interest.
Yeah, so we started that business about 6 years ago. It's a commercial real estate investment platform. I started my career on the brokerage side at a small boutique investment banking company called HFF. Guys named Mark Gibson, Jody Thornton. Not sure if you have bumped into them or not, but really had a desire to start my own thing, and it was deviating from what I was doing as an intermediary, very similar to what you guys do, where you're kind of putting stuff together, to kind of be more on the principal side of the business.
Right.
And so started that business 6 years ago, really to kind of scratch that itch that I had.
Yeah.
And it's been a really, really fun, really challenging transition, but an adventure that I wouldn't trade for really anything.
Yeah, so you started in 19 or 2000?
Started in 19.
Okay. So, so it's
been a very interesting ride.
Yeah. We've had a few events along the way.
My career's kind of been like that. So in 2006 is when I started in the business. It was June 6th of 06, 666. I should have seen.
Yeah, you should have started on the 7th.
Yeah. The market was going to turn. And so I got to see our business, HFF, go public in 07. I say our business. I was an analyst, but I got to see the business go public in 07, which was really neat. And all the changes that occurred. Wasn't a ton, but I got to see that. And then I got to see the GFC and truly what was happening there. And then I got to see us come out of that. And so that was kind of my first 4-year introduction into the commercial real estate business, or just kind of business in general. And then in 2019, as we sold HFF to JLL, so I got to see that. It was a great jumping off point for me to start a new business, my own business. And then the next 4 years were kind of like the way I started. So I got to see the worst pandemic in U.S. history, the highest interest rate hikes in U.S. history, and just has been a really, really wild ride. But I wouldn't trade it for anything. I've learned a lot.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, we'll come back to that in a few minutes. Where are you from?
I grew up in a town called Salina, Texas. I'm sure you're familiar. It's now the fastest growing city in America.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Technically?
It was last year. I think Princeton is now number one. I track all this stuff because we have to, because we're real estate investors. But it's up there, and it's amazing. So when I was there,
Celina is where exactly?
It is, if you take Preston Road and go directly north about 35 miles, that's where it is. Okay. So
is it beyond Prosper?
It's beyond Prosper. Okay,
so
it's Plano, Frisco, Prosper, Salina.
It's the next frontier.
It's the next frontier.
Yeah.
The secret is out. When I was there was a yellow blinking light and a Dairy Queen that ultimately went out of business. And just to kind of tell you how small it was, and we would kind of teeter between 1,698 people, 1,701, and so it was a small town, but football was life.
Yeah.
You know, we had this amazing streak of state championships that we went through. MTV came down and did a True Life, I Want to Be a Small Town Football Hero thing. It was like Varsity Blues, if you remember that movie.
Yeah.
And so that was my upbringing in a small farming community. That's kind of why I've got a little bit of a hick accent, but I wouldn't trade that for anything. So that's where it all started. Ultimately went to school at Rice University.
It was your family. What business was your family in?
So my parents were both in the real estate business also.
All right.
Dad sold farms and ranches up in Salina. Still does, is trying to retire. It's hard for him, as it is our entire gene pool to retire. Mom is a custom home builder. She's 73 years old, and she is building homes up in Celina and Prosper, and she's a
business that's probably going crazy.
It slowed down a little bit, given the cost of living and mortgage rates and all that kind of stuff. But she builds primarily higher end homes. But just with all the sprawl going north, she's in a really good spot.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? How I'm sure for most of their professional lives, it's been kind of just sleepy, maybe for lack of a better term, and then now all of a sudden here at the end of their careers, it's just this incredible growth.
Well, it's so my grandfather was a custom home builder.
Okay.
He was in Dallas in like
maternal.
Maternal in the 60s, came down here, started building homes in like Preston Hollow, like when that was the outer edge, and then Richardson, and then Plano, and it just. So our family has always been in the home building business in some form or fashion, and it's now kind of reaching. My mom was always commuting into Plano to build homes, and now as kind of time has gone on, it's now in her own backyard. So it's been good for her.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's great. So all right, so you graduate from Salina High School, go to Rice.
Yep, went to Rice, played football there. Discovered the commercial real estate business.
Was Rice was the decision to go to Rice primarily driven by football?
It was. They gave me a full ride, and it was one of those decisions where I was like, man, get a great education. If the NFL thing doesn't work out, this could be a great fallback. Some tough years. Started out, had some great seasons, and then kind of fell off the radar there. But yeah, that was one of the primary decisions.
Were you aware of Rice's academic
I was,
reputation?
But not really. I mean, Salina was such a small farming town. You just didn't have a lot of visibility into like what was out there.
Yeah.
And so there was no private schools in Salina. Didn't know anybody that went to private school, quite honestly. The JV football coach was the economics teacher, so supply and demand was a new concept. I ended up majoring in economics, but it was a steep learning curve, so I didn't really understand what kind of being worldly and having a diverse academic background really meant until I went there. Lots of people with opinions that I struggled with initially. So it was good for me to kind of grow, intellectually for sure.
Yeah. And then did you play football all 4 years?
Played football all 4 years. Okay. I was on the 5-year program. Got redshirted, but started the last 3 years at linebacker, so that was great. And so, it was a lot of fun.
So you mentioned a minute ago potentially NFL aspirations. So was that in the?
It was initially. I think as time went on, I was kind of an undersized linebacker, and I actually played quarterback in high school. And but we played both ways. I was the punter and the kicker, and just small town.
Salina.
Small town. Not like it is today, but and so I played on the other side of the football at Rice, and it was just like I'd played tackle football since I was in second grade, and so I just said, you know what, I think it's time to just kind of move on. Body was a little beat up, and it was just practices of just like Groundhog Day, so I was like, time for something new, so
at what point, what year did you kind of begin to shift and start to think about what was next beyond the NFL and football?
I think it was really when I discovered the business world, and it really started to kind of connect the dots for me in terms of kind of what my future looked like. I had my own lawn mowing business when I was in 7th, 8th grade, even in high school. We were driving in 8th grade around Salina, there wasn't many rules. So I could carry a lawnmower around with me, but always had that kind of entrepreneurial spirit, and saw the commercial real estate business and discovered what was going on there. And I said, wow, this is really cool. These guys are driving around like really nice cars. And it was one of those moments where I was like, hey, this seems like a good way to go. Financially seems like a really good decision, and nobody seems to be talking about it, which at that time to me, it seemed like a really good way to kind of like not go where the herd was going, which was like investment banking.
Right.
A lot of guys were in medical stuff, medical sales. Houston's obviously the largest medical center in the world, or has the largest medical center in the world. And so it was one of those things I was like, I'm going to go this way.
Right.
And so that's kind of what led me to that path.
Yeah. All right. So you graduate from Rice, and then is that when you joined HFF?
That's when I joined HFF. Yeah. Had a buddy that played with me at Rice that was there. Interestingly, there were multiple Division I football players that were like in the analyst pool that kind of immediately we all became kind of friends as I was getting recruited by HFF.
Was that intentional by HFF or just sort of happenstance?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. They really like guys that played at like team sports, at a high level.
Yeah.
My brother-in-law was also very influential in helping me get this job at HFF. He was with Archon and then Goldman and then JP Morgan, was in the CMBS lending business. And he was very influential in helping me just understand like what the commercial real estate finance market looked like.
Yeah.
And so so that's how I got to that point. I interviewed with multiple other groups. And ultimately, it was very clear to me that they were like the upper echelon of just kind of commercial real estate finance and capital markets. And I said, this is the next path. You know, it's funny how you in life pick certain paths and lead you in certain directions, and could not be more gracious and just absolutely feel more blessed to go and work at a place like HFF.
And that was a Houston office.
That was in Dallas.
It was in Dallas. Okay.
The day I graduated from Rice, literally had a U-Haul loaded up before I even went to the ceremony.
Yeah.
And got into the truck and drove.
You were ready to leave
and
Houston?
I was ready to leave. It just wasn't my place, you know?
Yeah.
And so yeah.
So you were coming back.
I was coming back.
Yeah,
I was coming back. Didn't move back to Salina. Moved back to Dallas, started 2 weeks later.
So we talk about decision points. That's the name of the podcast. What was an early decision, maybe in high school or college, an early decision point that was sort of impactful that, shaped the trajectory of what was next for you?
If I consider my life like this structure, I think some of the pillars that kind of are allowing me to build the rest of that structure are like, first, family. Had great leadership at home.
Yeah.
Dad was a college football player, hard worker, came from nothing, just an absolute stud. And I've been very blessed to have some very top tier men in my life just to kind of show me the way.
Yeah.
And so I think that's probably one of the primary pillars, with my mom being right there is on that same kind of pillar. In terms of just leadership and being a good Christian and being a good person. I think growing up in Celina, it didn't make me who I am, but it helped shape me. Hard work, manual labor, team atmosphere. I was coached by a guy named G.A. Moore, who I firmly believe was one of the best high school football coaches that's ever lived, across the country.
Yeah.
And he just passed away recently, and there were hundreds of people at his funeral. And he was one of those God-fearing men that just, whenever prayer was being questioned in school, he was the guy that stood on the 50-yard line, used his own speakers and said a prayer. And CNN was there, and Fox News.
I remember that. Yeah.
And he said, "Just come get me if you think this is wrong."
Yeah.
It was one of those moments where I just was like, "Wow, that's what real leadership is. Holy cow!" Anyway, went to Rice. That shaped me in ways that I never thought it would, quite honestly. Had a guy coach me there named Charlie Rizzo. He was a linebacker coach, tough, gritty guy, played at Auburn, fought in Vietnam, and was just a really, really good coach. I think all of that kind of led me to the commercial real estate business. Ultimately, it's funny how you look back and you realize you were like kind of being pushed this way, and you ultimately mentally had to make those decisions and what felt right.
Yeah.
I feel like I've been really blessed instinctively, or just with good instincts, I guess. And then with HFF, I got to see a totally different world of just commercial real estate, humans in general, and different personalities and different types of transactions. Travel across the country, across North America. And so this perspective that I've been able to gain by being at Rice, being at HFF, now starting my own business, it's just kind of allowed me to, I guess, gain a much more broad perspective on how the world works and how to position myself within that world, both business-wise as well as with my family and things like that. So.
All right, so you join HFF, you're an analyst, you're in this pool with a bunch of D1 football players and athletes. So walk us through kind of the next couple of years.
So the great financial crisis happened. 2 years into me being
pretty
there.
Quick.
So we were kind of bored, so we went and played flag football over at the Village and just got our butts kicked because all the guys there had been playing flag football for years and had plays and stuff. But no, that kind of funny how we all thought we were, still studs, but we were like, oh my gosh, we're not that great at this. And the GFC happened, and it was really eye-opening for me because I was still in that analyst pool.
Yeah.
And then ultimately, as we were coming out of the GFC, we did a large loan. So I was on the debt side, if you will. So we were on the side. I was on the side of HFF that was placing mortgages.
Yeah.
At that time, we couldn't even finance the shopping center across from North Park Mall. I mean, just to kind of give you a flavor for how. I mean, you lived through it.
Yeah.
You could not get credit.
Yeah.
We did a loan with a Swedish pension fund called Electa, and it was a 25-year. It was a 5-year loan, 25-year amortization, like just totally crushed your cash flow. And then 12 months later, we refinanced it with MetLife at like 20% higher leverage and like full term interest only and like much. And all of a sudden I said, all right, I'm really done being an analyst because I'm kind of burnt out. I was putting in so many hours and it was just one of those things. It was just like, I need to make another move. And talk about decision points. I had 2 decisions to make. One, go off and do my own thing. My parents did it. Grandfather did it.
Right.
Felt like I could do it.
You've seen it.
I've seen it. I just didn't really know what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
The safe route was to stay at HFF, become a debt producer or a broker. And so that's what I chose.
Okay.
I was getting married at the time, met my wife at HFF.
Okay.
Again, decision points. A lot of decisions happened at HFF.
Yeah.
And so I was buying a home, getting married, starting basically this feast or famine role.
Because your comp structure changed.
Okay. I'm getting a salary.
Yeah.
I really haven't been paid a salary most of my career, which I love.
Yeah.
And I'm going to encourage my kids to ultimately try to go down that path if they have the personality for it. And so that was kind of that analyst transition to producer, and it was a ton of fun. It was just like, all right, now what?
Yeah. Yeah, so you go from being behind the desk to out in front.
Out in front. Out in front in a way where, like, I had to make people like me. I had to find out truly who I was, find my own voice, figure out amongst all the stuff that could be done in terms of, like, where do you make your hay? Is it this pasture? Is that pasture? Or is it this one? And I found myself again kind of going where other people weren't going.
Yeah.
You know, like with the commercial real estate business in general. I was like, well, nobody's talking about student housing.
Right.
And some people were, but just like not a ton of, we just weren't doing a lot of business on that front. And just all of a sudden was scooping up this business because nobody had ever met anybody from HFF in the student housing business. And then I started flying into Kansas City because we didn't have an office in Kansas City. And I was sitting there talking to people and they were like, wow, this guy really knows what he's talking about because they just hadn't had anybody, come in to talk like that.
Right.
It wasn't because I was so smart. I was just saying stuff that they hadn't heard before. And so that's kind of how I shaped the initial part of my business, was just kind of going against the grain a little bit.
Yeah, so you've mentioned that now 2 or 3 times. Where does that come from?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
I don't know where that comes from. I think it's just part of like one of those things like, hey, maybe it's stuff you just hear and you don't even know that you heard it, but your gut tells you like, hey, don't do this, go do that. But I think it's really instincts, honestly, is what that is.
How do you react when, how many people do you have on your team today?
It's a small team. We've only got four guys.
Okay. So it may not be directly applicable, but it sure would have been at HFF. How do you react when someone around you says, well, so-and-so's doing this, so we should do that?
Yeah.
What's your sort of gut reaction to a statement like that?
It's usually the very easy question of, well, why?
Yeah.
Why do you want to do that?
Yeah.
It's like data centers. Like everybody asks me, are you doing data centers? And I'm like, we kind of missed that boat. It's outside of our lane. I've had a lot of good mentors tell me to just stay in your lane. Of course, some of those mentors have gone off their lane and made a ton of money doing it. But I always ask the question, why? I try to lead a very purpose-driven business. And if it's about the money, that's one thing. If it's truly about building like a second silo where we're going to be like permanently in that business for a long, long time, that to me is more attractive than like getting rich quick kind of thing. And I may be just short-sighted and too conservative in that regard, but that's kind of the way I usually respond to that question.
Yeah. I find that when someone in our organization says, oh, well, XYZ firm is doing it this way, I'm kind of like, okay, well, then we probably need to do something different, totally different, right? And it's almost and it's not a fault of the person making that statement. It's more of just sort of this gut, like this, it's like way deep down, this guttural sort of reaction to,
I agree.
Like, wait a second, if everybody's doing this, then something's maybe off, and there's a missed opportunity over here.
Well, I always think about, like, who is the person on the other side of the table that's going to say, oh, you're doing it like everybody else does? Well, then you're not really different at all. And I think one of the most powerful things you can do as an organization is be different.
Right.
Because it's hard, because it's valuable, because people see that you actually did try to be different, and there's almost like this inherent, like, oh, I want to go over to that little shiny object over there. So capital, we borrow a lot of capital, and so I think people resonate with that. And so I think there's like true value to being different. It's not just being different, like there's like actual value associated.
Right. There's some risk in being different just for the sake of being different, but if different is unlocking or recognizing opportunities that other people don't see,
correct,
that's where the opportunity is. Yeah,
totally.
All right, so you've switched over to the other side. You're now out front. You're producing, not on a salary, variable comp. And so how's that going? You're past the great financial crisis at this point, I'm guessing.
Just coming out of it.
Yeah.
Lenders are starting to come back. I didn't really have at that point a perspective on like truly what was happening from a macroeconomic perspective, truly what was happening, within Washington, D.C., and just all the capital constraints that were getting put on banks. I didn't understand truly how jacked up the CMBS market was. And I was just kind of finding my way. I would literally get on an airplane, fly to New York or Chicago or something like that, and have all these stats memorized and just get in front of people and just say, hey, did you know this, this, and this, and that, and whatever? And they were probably just like, who is this kid? What I started to realize was like just being visible was like a very powerful tool. Different.
Yeah.
So many people, I think, especially in sales or just that are kind of front people, are thinking so much about like strategy that just taking action and being visible, you got to be likable and you got to be, personable, whatever. If you're in sales, just in general, I think you have to be that way in business. But I think that's one of the mistakes a lot of people don't make, is inaction is so much more negatively impacting you or your business than just taking some action. So I realized real quick that was part of it. I was like, man, all I got to do is just get in front of these people and talk and just sound smart and give them something they haven't heard before.
Know my stuff, build relationships.
And it ultimately, it paid off. I had a very blessed background because I was at a company that it was held in high regard, so it wasn't just me at all.
Right. So when you called and said, hey, I'm with HFF, they take your call and
credibility,
you get a meeting.
And you get a meeting. And so that was truly impactful. So, but over the course of that 3-year period, I ended up being one of the top, debt producers in the Dallas office, which was the top producing office in HFF, company wide. And but in 2015, something happened.
Yeah.
Another decision point.
Good job on tying it in.
Yeah. It's funny how we're talking through this. There was a lot of decision points in my life. We had 3 guys leave that led our industrial capital markets team. They were guys that were out there flying all over the country, convincing people to sell industrial buildings. I read the rags all the time, all the industry news about like transactions that were happening, and I was seeing like CBRE and JLL and all these guys handling these big industrial sales. And I was like, man, why are we not involved in that? We're doing a ton of business, but it seems like we could do more. Anyway, the guys that led that team left. And so we looked around, the company did, to try to find a replacement, and really couldn't find anybody that wanted to step into that shoe and take on the competitors. And again, another moment where nobody's going that direction. I'm like, well, I'll do that. Like, this sounds awesome. I can build a business within a business and kind of take that next step for me.
Right.
And just this urge that I had. And so that's what I did.
Yeah.
And so I started our industrial capital markets team from scratch. I'd never sold a building before. Had my real estate license. I kept renewing it, but I didn't really know why. That was the moment where I could like use it.
Yeah.
And so I flew all over the country, got smart on industrial, figured out how much I loved the people in that business, figured out that I could really play an impactful role, used a lot of the lessons learned from being a debt guy, of just like being visible and being likable and being knowledgeable was just like a really powerful tool. And people took me seriously immediately because I had an HFF card and because I was paying attention to what was going on. And so that's what really got me to the industrial business.
Okay.
And I saw the theme that was happening, which ultimately led me to starting my own business on the principal side.
Right.
Because I thought there was a lot of permanency in the industrial space and how much capital was flowing to that sector within real estate. I didn't realize it would go where it went.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just one of those moments where I was just, kind of right place, right time.
Right.
But I was connecting the dots. And so when I looked up, I was like, wow, this is surprising, but but it was everything you were seeing.
Yeah.
And so.
Surprising, but made sense.
But made sense, So
you were there 15 to 19 building a business within a business.
Yep.
And then what was sort of the catalyst for the eventual breakaway?
So I partnered up with a guy, and we started a business called Urban Logistics Realty.
Okay. This is before formation.
This was another decision point.
Okay.
This was before formation, and we started that with the intention of doing what we call small and mid-bay industrial. They're basically smaller industrial buildings. Industrial buildings in our world are just, in the warehouse world, they're rectangles. They're four walls and a roof. The smaller the building, the different type of tenant that goes into that building, the bigger the building, different type of tenant. And so we decided to focus on that sector in very infill locations, urban locations, highway proximate, and we decided to do it in Dallas and Houston. And so we were very intentional about that. When I made that decision, it was at the same exact time that HFF was being sold to JLL.
Right.
And so for me, I had a ton of respect for the people that kind of brought me up in the business. Mark Gibson, Jody Thornton, guys that are still great friends, guys that are actually investors with me now. And I just said, this is a great way for me to not leave them completely hanging. And a great way for me to kind of make this jumping off point.
Right.
So that's kind of how that transition happened. We had a 1 million square foot project to kickstart the business.
Wow.
Crow Holdings Capital was our capital partner. And we had a loan from Comerica Bank, and it was just like, I said, oh my gosh, this is
easy.
Yeah. Well, industrial at that point, it kind of was easy to a certain extent. I mean, you could get financing relatively easily. Capital was flowing towards spec industrial. We're a pure play spec industrial group, either in buying stuff or developing stuff. And it ultimately was like, this is exactly how I kind of dreamt it up, So it worked out really well.
And so did you start that business while you were still at HFF?
I did.
Okay.
Started it, put the whole venture together with Crow, announced it to leadership at HFF as the transition was happening. It wasn't a great conversation. They weren't mad at me. It was just like, are you sure? Like, we got nothing but upside.
Right.
And it would have been an amazing ride with JLL. Amazing.
Yeah.
But I told them, I go, two things were happening. One, it was an urge that I just had from a long time
Been in there all the way through.
All the way through.
Yeah.
And then I think I found myself, two things were happening. Actually a third thing, I guess. But I told them, I said, I'm not doing this for the money.
Yeah.
Like, I know you're telling me that it's going to be great and financially, whatever. I was like, this is about something else.
Yeah.
There was divine intervention. There were moments where I was just sitting there at church and all of a sudden I was like, he's talking to me. Like, the preacher was sitting there just like, what are you scared of? Like, multiple times. I've still got the sermon like at my desk where I was just like, this is it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is absolutely a calling for me to do this. And because I did the math and I looked at the risk that I was not taking as a broker and the money I was making, and then the risk that I would be taking and the potential money if everything worked out as a developer and owner. And I was like, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
And so I have a very high tolerance for risk. Don't go to Vegas with me.
Yeah.
But it was just like, this is what I want to do. And it was just one of those things where like I needed something more fulfilling in life to kind of get me where I had this level of contentment that kind of fulfilled me as a man.
Right.
Yes, you know.
So at that moment, and when would you say you first had the entrepreneurial sort of bug? Like the first time you were like, you know what, at some point I'm going to have to go do something on my own.
Yeah, eighth grade.
Eighth grade. Yeah. When you were mowing yards.
Yeah, I just kind of like, I just said, wow, this makes sense. Of course, I had a lot of inspiration from, family members.
Of course.
But in my professional career, it just hit me in 2010 whenever I had that kind of either stay in the safe kind of HFF bubble or go out on your own.
Yeah.
The amount of money and the wealth that I probably could have created going then could have been unbelievable. But I also could have just failed miserably, because I didn't gain 10 years of knowledge or 8 years of knowledge by staying where I was.
Right. Right.
So
I think it's always interesting talking to, a business owner, entrepreneur, like from the outside looking in, it feels risky to do what you did. Right. But for you, it probably, you were just like, I just got to go do this. Like,
got to go do it.
You know? Yeah, there's risk, but it's kind of, it's like when we started True North, it was, I just didn't feel risky, but I look back, I was 32 years old and, had a small base of clients and, Mark Gelbach, our co-founder, we were college roommates and we were just like, okay, I think we can do this, and so it didn't feel risky at all. But looking back, you're kind of like, wow, that was a big risk,
right.
Signing a lease and, just doing all the stuff. So,
right. It is. I think you either like that feeling or that kind of, being uncomfortable is something that you have to get incredibly comfortable with. And, I don't know. I mean, playing quarterback in high school, and going through these state championships and like everything, you touch the ball first. And if you screw up, like everybody knows who screwed up.
Right.
And I've just always been in that situation my entire, life pretty much. And so I was always comfortable with it. But professionally, and then you got a family and just like, I did it later in life. So I was like, I had a lot more to lose. But I also kind of faced this reality where I said, you're in your late 30s. Or I guess it was mid 30s that time, but you don't, it's either now or never.
That's right.
And you're about halfway through your life potentially.
Right.
So I like to be morbid. But I think about that stuff. It's just like you truly only, people always talk, you have one life to live. People on their deathbeds, I wish I would have done this, I wish I would have done that. And I just kept having that feeling of just like, why do I keep thinking about doing something else? Like, go do it. My wife was like, if you don't go do this now, you're never going to do it. And I'm tired of hearing about it.
Right, exactly.
So that
our wives can be great partners in that regard.
Oh yeah. For sure. She is the one that's content all the time. I'm the one that's always like striving for more and more and more. So we kind of balance each other out there. But
that's good. All right. So tell us a little bit more about formation. So you had urban logistics.
Yep.
That was this first deal, 1 million square feet. And then how did that ultimately end up becoming formation?
We had a great run. When COVID happened, I looked at my partner and said, oh my gosh, like, what are we going to do? This is crazy. He started saying, well, hey, I'm hearing that the business is actually going to do really well for industrial because you can't go into a retail store. And I started looking at other people, talking to other people. And it was just like, holy moly, this could be like something we've never seen.
Right.
For the warehouse space.
Right.
Industrial space. And, but you couldn't get a flight anywhere in like April, May, June of 20. So we went on the offensive. Yeah. It was that moment in time that you hear about, like with the RTC back in the 80s when everybody was scooping up everything. And like in 2020, we were going down to Houston because nobody go to Houston because oil was at negative $35 a barrel.
Right.
and we were scooping up, a few hundred acres in Houston and Dallas to go do industrial development because we saw these trends that were happening. We're buying buildings. Wish I would have bought a lot more buildings. That was one of the kind of the rubs that I had with my partner in terms of just kind of directionally, where's the company going? And so we built roughly 30-ish buildings within like a 3 to 4 year period in Dallas and Houston. We opened up an office in Phoenix.
Okay.
And we had some really, really big windfalls that kind of took our 10-year business plan and shrunk it into 3 in terms of what we accomplished, 3 to 5 years. So it was really a blessing. It was terrible what happened with COVID, but it really took our business and just catapulted it into the next decade, way faster than anybody thought. But ultimately, me and my business partner just had different visions where we wanted to take the business. So ultimately, kind of had a little work divorce. One of the hardest things I've done, but it was very amicable, and it was one of those things, learning lesson, right?
Right.
And so I took on the Phoenix office. So I rebranded, restructured, took on Phoenix and some developments we had going out there.
Yeah.
And in personnel.
And kept Dallas, obviously.
And Dallas, and then we had several assets that we just kind of legacy assets that we did really well on ultimately as we sold as we were coming out of this like crazy interest rate hike environment.
Yeah. So looking back, kind of all the way back to the beginning of starting Urban Logistics with your partner, what would you have done differently? What did you learn? What would you have done differently to sort of hopefully avoid the work divorce? 3 or 4 years later.
I think probably been a little more vocal in terms of just like, hey, this is what I want. Hey, remember this is what the business plan was originally.
Yeah. Were you guys same age, peers, pretty much? Or
he was older. Yeah,
he was a little older.
Older. And I think kind of continually getting on the same page with respect to directionally where the company was going.
Yeah.
I think was something we did not do enough.
Yeah.
Probably was not as vocal. Me personally, in terms of just kind of that desire to stick with the original game plan. And so I think risk appetites changed. I think desire to do certain things changed. And people change. I mean, that's just kind of the nature of partnerships.
How much older is he than you?
7-ish,
okay.
I think. 6, 7. And I think that's, it's kind of like the divorce rate, among married couples, super high. The likelihood of real estate or partnerships, business partnerships working out, super low. And so congrats to you guys for the success you guys have had. And there's been people in the real estate business that have done it successfully, and it's great to see. But ultimately it was a blessing. Yeah. And I think he would say too, that like, it's one of those things where
needed to do it.
2 alphas, just like, it just couldn't coexist. So.
That's interesting. So I was reading a book last night. So one of our guests that we've had this season is Mark Winters, who's an EOS implementer. Are you familiar with EOS?
No.
It's the Entrepreneurial Operating System. So it's an operating system that goes in your business, and we can talk about it more.
Yeah.
Mark is our implementer, so he's been coaching us for a little over a decade now, and he's written 2 books. He's written one book called Rocket Fuel, which is the relationship between a visionary and an integrator. And your integrator is kind of like your, almost like a COO, right? So it's the person that's in the details and making sure the trains run on time. And the visionary is a big picture thinker. And
right.
And so Mark and I sort of sit in these visionary integrator, Mark Gelbach, our co-founder, sit in this visionary integrator seat. But one of the things that Mark Winters talks about is the importance of that relationship in particular working really, really well. And so Mark and I we're not perfect by any stretch, but we work really hard at trying to make sure that relationship works.
Right.
Because sort of the speed of our relationship, the speed of the organization,
right?
For sure.
Absolutely,
so it's important to get that right.
Absolutely. And if you're not in sync, it's very noticeable to the company.
Everybody can see it.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. So you guys have your divorce, and then you're separate, and then you start your business.
Yep.
And that was in 2002?
That was August of 23.
Okay.
I bought a 300,000 square foot office building up in Allen.
Okay.
Right across from Waters Creek, if you're familiar, Bethany and 75 there. And it was one of those observations where like it was very clear that our risk tolerance was not the same. And I said, this is incredible real estate, and I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go buy this. And so bought that building with the intention of redeveloping it into industrial. It actually has light industrial zoning underneath it. And hired a guy named Kyle Heath that came on to help oversee kind of new Texas investments. Hired a guy that was at Hillwood that did a lot of industrial there. And we had Phoenix going, and so we had a lot of good things going, but you still couldn't get a loan.
Right.
I mean, this was, fall of 23.
Yeah.
We had assets or land that was under contract still that we were just trying to push and put more earnest money up, and just like, God, I hope this works out. And it was one of those like moments in time where you're just like, take notes, because you're learning a lot right now about how to get through a very tough financial time.
Right.
It was very similar to 2009, 2010 in terms of the availability of
capital,
credit.
Yeah.
And equity. Capital in general. And so we actually partnered up with Crescent Real Estate, John Goff's family office, and did a project in Phoenix in January of 24. We bought the land. I kept telling everybody we need to buy more land because nobody's buying land. I mean, nobody. Again, it was one of those things like nobody's doing it. Let's go do it. But to get people to do anything in those moments in time is so incredibly hard.
Yeah.
And so you have to continually try to align yourselves with capital.
Yeah. That
when those moments come up, you kind of know that you can react.
That's right.
Native.
Who's going to be on board?
And so we kickstarted that relationship with Crescent. It's been great. They helped us kind of plant that flag in Phoenix. And then we've done a couple other very large projects there that have been super exciting. Since then, we've been on the offensive just because as debt markets come back, and they have in a big way, advance rates are higher than they were. You can actually get accretive returns now because of where the finance markets are. The equity has come back slowly, but it is back. So we have tied up some very significant sites in Dallas and Houston. El Paso is a market that we're about to enter with a phenomenal site. We're very thematic in what we do. We try to focus on these huge tectonic shifts. Industrial because of e-commerce.
Right.
Urban infill locations because of the urbanization of America that's been happening over the last 20 years. That's where businesses want to be, near that population growth. Top population growth markets in America, Dallas, Houston, Phoenix. Perennially just the top five. And then we build really good industrial buildings.
Yeah.
Different than what some of our competitors do. It's very easy to build industrial relative to make it look kind of like everybody else's buildings. It's hard to dress up a box, a cube. Right. So we've tried really hard to do that.
Yeah. And so now you said you've got 4 people working with you.
We've got 4 people. We're working on starting another platform within our business. It's still within our lane. It's just kind of a complementary side to that, buying industrial buildings. We bought 4 industrial buildings in the last 9 months, just kind of looking where other people are looking. And so I'm a very high quality of life guy, meaning I wouldn't say I have a high quality of life sometimes, but I want to focus on quality of my life. So I'm not on my phone all the time. I'm not doing certain things. So I'll never be like a Prologis, if you know them, or we'll never have 50 employees.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, like maybe a dozen at some point.
Yeah.
It's just harder to manage a ton of people, and it's hard. But never say never. Things could change,
right?
But that's kind of the near term.
All right. So from here, where do we go from here? What's the next 10, 15, 20 years? I mean, you just
professionally,
you just mentioned, I don't want to have this huge organization, but like, what's the runway look like for the next 10 or 15 years?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a great question. I try to think in like 3 to 5 year increments. Next 3 years, we've got an amazing pipeline of investments that we're going to focus on doing those really, really well.
Yeah.
We're going to build up a business within our current business that's going to be focused on buying existing industrial buildings, where there's some sort of just value add opportunity with it. This is not a new thing. There are a ton of people doing it, but you got to get the right dude or dudette to go out and do it and execute that business. And then just continue to kind of pour into my people to help them grow. I've intentionally kind of focused on kind of building up a younger team, guys that want to kind of, jump onto the bandwagon and learn from me and just the things that we're doing. And I'm learning a lot too.
Yeah.
5 years from now, it's hard to have a ton of visibility in that, but I would tell you in an ideal world, just continue to do what we're doing, do it really well, continue to build our volume. I'd like to build, eventually we're going to hit $1 billion in terms of overall transaction volume. So that'll be a big marker for us. So
how do you think about, and you mentioned this a couple times in the last 45 minutes or so, but how do you think about your own personal, wealth accumulation and growth there? I mean, some people would say, oh, well, you got to be bigger. You got to have 50 employees. You got to do more volume. How do you personally think about just creating wealth for you and your family?
Another great question. I've been very fortunate in my career. It has not come for a lack of trying and a lack of hard work. It has been a lot of that. And it has required a lot of that, a lot of travel, a lot of being away from home, stuff like that. I think that I value being at home a lot. I don't like to be in the office a ton. Like I like to be out on the street and moving and shaking. But I think that for me, financial gains are probably secondary to building an impactful, like purposeful business. And I know that sounds cliche, and I know that may be coming from a guy that's been, successful or whatever, however you define success financially. I've been obviously.
Yeah, it's a little easier to say that if you've had some success.
A little easier to say that.
Yeah.
But, when I was a broker, I was making commissions and they were coming in, and I just kept looking at my bank account, and I was like, when's it ever going to be enough?
Yeah.
Like what is the number? Is there a number? And then I started realizing, more money, more problems. You start to want to buy the lake house or this or that or whatever. And it's like, what truly are you after?
Right.
Like, what is the end game ultimately?
Right.
And I don't know that I've fully answered that question, other than I am less driven by the financial aspect of our business and have totally bought into the concept of keep your head down, work your butt off, be different, pour into your people, and ultimately all the financial stuff just comes along with it. And I really, really believe that.
Yeah.
There was some Rand Stagen.
Yeah.
He mentioned something about the best way to increase profit is not focus on profit.
Right.
It's to focus on everything else.
Right.
And that's kind of what I have been trying to do. Don't get me wrong. Like I look at my budget and I'm focused on kind of the bottom line. I don't fly first class. I don't stay at the Ritz or the mansion. I'm whatever's $250. Like that's where I'll stay if possible.
Yeah.
It's hard with inflation and everything that's going on, but so that's how I think about it.
That's great. So one additional question before we wrap. So so how do you think you're building an enterprise, right? So you're building an enterprise that's got intrinsic value. How do you think about potentially unlocking that enterprise value in a transaction down the road, or do you? Or
I do.
Because if you don't sell it, you bought it, right? Like every day you don't sell it, you've just bought it. So
so corporately we have no outside partners at a parent level. Like I own the business.
Yeah.
I don't see, unless I structured it in a way that's never been done before, or in a way that made me very, very, very independent. I don't know that selling the business is something that I would necessarily be fond of. Like I want to do this for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I had a partner at one time, and I had to wake up every day and try to make sure that what I was thinking was good, and he was thinking whatever. And it just wasn't for me from a personality perspective.
Yeah.
That being said, enterprise value is important. And as a developer, you don't really have enterprise value. You're building these little businesses that are called partnerships.
Right.
And those have value, and those little businesses get sold off. And so building enterprise value to me is going to be a big focus, not for the hope of monetizing it lately, but for sustainability of our company to be able to draw credit, to be able to have consistent cash flow.
Right.
Development is such a risky thing, speculative development.
Right.
And so those things probably are more attractive than the concept of like monetizing a business, I would say.
Awesome. All right. So we got a some guys listening to this podcast who are thinking about going into business for themselves, what last piece of advice would you give them before we part?
I would ask, if somebody's asking the question, should I go out on my own or should I partner up with somebody or whatever, start a business, I would always ask yourself why you're doing it. Mm-hmm. Like, what is ultimately your goal? Mm-hmm. If it's truly about making a ton of money or whatever, it's probably not the best reason. It's a good reason but if you're truly after wealth, this is something not many people think about in their 20s, right? Yeah. It's just like, I want the flashy car, I want this, that, and the other. We've got a very materialistic society.
Right.
I mean, I am materialistic to a certain degree. Like, I like my toys, but I think you have to ask yourself those questions to ultimately end up in a good spot when you look up and be like, oh yeah, that's why I did this. Mm-hmm. Or you don't even have to ask yourself, like, you continually know, you're reminded by it. And I think asking yourself what you value, I think is super important. And then ask yourself, thirdly, and probably finally, do you feel like what you're stepping into, your business that you're wanting to do, is it worthwhile in the sense of it has permanency, there's a theme to it, you think you can do it better than somebody else. Mm-hmm. Again, it all has to do with what you value too. So it's all like this kind of circular reference.
Right.
And so I think those are the things that I would probably tell somebody, because ultimately, money's just like paper.
Right.
And you don't leave with it when you leave this world. And it's different strokes for different folks, but like, why do you wake up to go do what you're saying you want to do? Mm-hmm. So I think that's a critical question for longevity.
Great stuff. Adam, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great.
Appreciate it.
Great hour together, and good luck with everything.
I'd love to turn the tables around on the next one and
Sure.
ask you a lot of this stuff.
Yeah,
I'm super interested about y'all's business. By the way, Chris Conlon is doing a great job for you guys, and he has been whatever you guys are doing with your training or whatever, he's done awesome.
Oh, thank you for saying that. Chris is a great guy.
Yeah, he is.
Awesome. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
Good job.